All right, welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. Big show for you today. Excited. It's a Thursday. That means we got our guy Ben Stevens going to be joining us. He is super pumped, because he's excited to always give you all the knowledge that you like to have. He said he does understand why you're so impressed with him, but said, you know what, Schlegel is a man who's easily impressed, Ben. But honestly, Ben's going to give us the best knowledge and nuggets for you to maybe wet your beak for the weekend. So that's going to be fun and exciting. We're going to have a new little segment for you too here. Might start working it on Thursdays called Love It or Lift It or Lose It, where either we're going to lift the take or we're going to lose the take, and we're going to Pat jump in and play along. So that'll be a lot of fun. We got our headlines. We got our fan questions. That's going to be terrific. There'll be a lot of stuff here to ultimately get to. Schlegs, wanted to start with this before we get into the Iowa stuff, because we're going to get into Caleb Johnson, that Iowa run game, that Iowa defense, how all that looks, Ryan Day's saying, what people are thinking. I want to start with this. I don't know if it's you that found this. Dave Portnoy, who founded, owns Barstool, sold it, bought it back. Financially well-off dude, Michigan guy. And he threw this out there a couple of days ago, complaining about the Michigan quarterback situation, said, hey, I'll donate $1 million a year to bring in a quarterback for the University of Michigan. And apparently, if you want to toss that up there, Pat, as you look at it, he said he has now talked to Sharon Schlegel, and they've been in discussions about potentially getting that $1 million NIL situation for Michigan's quarterback. Your thoughts?
Hey, you know what? Hey, he's a Michigan man that wants to donate money so that, and I like that you're earmarking this $1 million for a quarterback, whether that's somebody that we're recruiting, or again, I don't know what that conversation was, but I just like this one guy said, Dave confirms that Orji, Warren, and Davis are something. And you know what? Hey, he's just like, I want to make sure that we have the best at that particular position, and I am willing to donate out of my checking account $1 million for you guys to have a quarterback. Or let's just bring Connor Stallions back, and everything would be fine.
Yeah. Do you like this? Do you like boosters getting out there publicly? Like, Portnoy probably could have gotten to Sharon more without, talking about it publicly, but it makes for content, good content on Barstool, allows us to talk about it. Do you like people publicly doing this stuff?
I do not, and most people that do this do not. Like, I mean, the only time you hear of like the real big donations is somebody donates tens of millions of dollars and now they're on the scoreboard at Ohio Stadium, or they're somehow affiliated with the Med Center or the James, and we've seen that, Bob. We've been a part of that. But again, look at who's donating the money. This is the content that they want to talk about, and it's very evident right on the show. It's like kind of Ohio State, Michigan. There's that running theme in there, and that's where he's putting his money. He wants everybody to make sure that they know about it. Doesn't mean that we know all the different things that he potentially donates to or gives to, but like this one is near and dear to him, that provides a lot of content for his show. So why not put it out there? And it's something that you could potentially see. Let's not kid ourselves. Pat also donated to West Virginia, right? So like, why not? Now he did it in a different manner than kind of this, but I mean, that was kind of impromptu. A little different, but still the same.
Yeah, I mean, he did it on his show. Pat did that. He's a West Virginia alum, wanted to get involved, throw it out there. So, like, I like it. I like that people are getting involved. A lot of Ohio State fans are probably trying to figure out, well, where's our guy like this? Is there someone out there that's willing to throw $1 million? Like, because this wasn't just a one-off. And that's the thing with the NIL. Like, you can get people to give $500,000 or $1 million one time. The ability to continuously give it, though, that is where the difference lies. It's a lot of money, man. Yeah. That's a lot of post-tax dollars to be thrown out there on a player that may or may not be good. Now, so when you're talking about recruiting a guy, you hope that he's going to be elite. You want him to be elite, but will he be? I don't know. And I don't think this is really much different than Nike with Phil Knight. With what he does. Everybody talks about Oregon and everything that they've got going. I mean, they're going to fund a lot of stuff. It's going to make a lot of sense for them. I mean, that's their flagship brand. And like, if Portnoy can do more things and build this up, Michigan's a big time national brand. I get it. I just think there's probably people now looking around. If you're at USC, if you're at Ohio State, if you're at Penn State, you're probably thinking, well, where's our guy like this? Who's going to be able to do that for us? Because this is what it ultimately takes. There's going to be the revenue sharing, and we know that that's on the horizon. But this is that lanyard, Schlegs. This is that little something extra that might be able to sweeten the pot for some of those big-time recruits.
And it's also going to be, I'm telling you this right now, is it through a collective that's a 501c3 or through the athletic department that then this goes to? Because
well, I don't think it's through the athletic department. A lot of these boosters now, they're just doing this straight up. And a lot of
they're going to want the tax benefits, Bob. They're going to
want, but the 501c's, like there's some limits on what they've been able to do with that. And that's why they started the other, like the straight up LLC arm. This deal is going to be directly with Barstool. So I guess they could technically write that as a marketing expense, but it's not going to be it's not going to be a tax deductible donation to a 501c3. They will be marketing through Barstool, and maybe they'll have a podcast or do something with that. So there is that business expense that will be allocated, but it's not going to be the same accounting treatment.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily out of his pocket directly. It's out of the business, and we're just going to make sure that this Michigan quarterback is our brand ambassador for Barstool, and we're going to do that however we want to do it to, say that we have value, right? So it's the owner's value to have that guy as his brand ambassador, but it's also giving back to the school in which, he roots for.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back. You just got to be creative. You got to be creative. And I would say this.
Interesting go ahead. Say it, baby.
No, I was just going to say, biggest thing too, and I just look at our fan base and how they're like, don't look at our players, right? Like the one thing is, like, sometimes people forget that the guys that are playing right now, this is when they're generating their income and revenue. Don't look at the current players. We've already seen CJ already come back and give back. You already saw dadgum Jeremiah Smith donate to his school. You saw, Quinshon Judkins do the same thing. I absolutely love that. Don't look at our guys that are in the league to come back and do this right now. But it's really thinking about outside the box of people that have businesses that potentially a student athlete could be a brand ambassador for, that they have affinity to Ohio State.
Yeah, I would say that's a part of it, a big part of it. Here's the question I have. When you talk about $1 million for the quarterback, like, you bring new recruits every year, Schlegs. Is that $1 million every year? Like, is that a new quarterback every year? Does that roll? Is it $1 million between spread over the room? Like, is that $1 million for the starter? Like, once the guy becomes a starter, because you're going to pay him, a guy $1 million as a true freshman to sit there for you. Like, these are all the questions and all the things that I always have, because I don't know, Schlegs, if there's good answers to a lot of this stuff.
No, not really. And guess what? That's kind of probably why Dave wants a seat at the table, so he can kind of direct where he wants his money to go.
Place at the
table. Because if you're thinking about it, like, he's so now invested into it with cash from the business, he wants to make sure that the guy that's representing Barstool at that is the guy that's playing and showing the value. But then, to your point, Bob, how does this look on the recruiting scale, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to Michigan. They're going to give me $1 million right away. No, you got to develop to be able to be that dude. And maybe when you are that dude, here's, the king's reward, right? For being that guy.
Lucky Pierre, Schlegs.
Yeah, look at him. He's out there. He's got a little crown on. I can just see it right now, like totally played out. Barstool got a little crown on. Some kind of big M chain out there, just talking
maybe
shop.
Like a big cloak and maybe like some sort of scepter as well, waving that around.
Yeah, sitting there just like this.
Like he's getting ready to go to a Diddy party. I know exactly where your head's at, Schlegs. I could see you imagining that.
And I just be in the back with the chalice, just like this, the vibing.
Absolutely.
Not at a Diddy party.
Interesting. Barstool started their own NIL collective, like, organization back in 2000. So they're well positioned and able to do this. So kudos to Portnoy. Now everybody else just has to figure it out. All right, on to the Iowa Hawkeyes, Schlegs.
Okay.
Buckeyes will be playing them. Are you more worried when you look at this Iowa team about their offense, running the ball, grinding it out, or the ability to have success for Ohio State's offense against a defense that is super veteran? I mean, they have a lot of fifth-year, super senior, sixth-year guys out there. They're really good in the trenches, physical and tough against the run. Which side are you leaning more worried for?
Here's the thing. I just go back to, I remember 2022 when we were talking about the Iowa defense in the same type game. And I believe it was like 54 to something, Bob. And then you just start looking at like what Iowa does. They've lost 7 consecutive games versus AP ranked opponents. 0-3 last year, outscored 92-0. Okay, I'm just saying the facts, right? Then you go look at
You're just saying
who they played. Illinois State, Iowa State lost, right? They were controlling that game. Troy was close. Minnesota, but it was like close. Yes, they were very good against the run in those games, but Iowa State, Troy, and Minnesota all threw for over 200 yards. You look at those passing attacks compared to our passing attacks. You look at our offensive line versus those offensive lines and our running backs. I'm not worried about this game at all. Honestly, I think it's going to be a big number. What I want to see, though, from it is controlling the line of scrimmage, because they could stack the boxes in those games to stop the run. They still gave up 200 yards, but those 200 yards aren't with our 200-yard playmakers. That automatically goes into one play, one touchdown. That's the point. That's the point in all this. So, again, they've really played nobody. And I can honestly say, have we really played anybody? Our biggest test was Michigan State. They played Iowa State, who's ranked. They played Minnesota, who's been playing teams tough, but that's really about it. So I'm not worried about this at all. I'm excited for the matchup, though. Good versus good. They've only allowed 3 people inside the red zone this year on defense. But we're still the number 1 scoring defense in the country, Bob.
We are number 1 scoring defense. I think 3rd ranked rushing defense. Iowa is the 4th ranked rushing defense. Caleb Johnson, Hamilton native, Ohio guy, Schlegel. Any concern or worry as you look at that and saying, what is this Ohio guy when they come back in, how they play? And they always have that little extra motivation. We know that. We've seen it happen. When guys leave and go to other schools, he's going to give his best game. How do you tackle a guy like that that's big, that's physical, they're running the inside zone, they'll run a little gap scheme, run some of that stretch? Like how do you make sure that you're getting this guy to the ground?
Well, this is a great test for what we saw a little bit in the Michigan State game. And I think you alluded to on Morning Juice, Bob, where you saw a little bit of the 3 linebacker defenses as a preview to what we're going to see versus the Iowas of the world, the Michigans of the world that want to run the football. The biggest way to stop that is to build the wall. You're going to have to come downhill and attack and take off the B block off of the nose guard. You're going to have to build the wall. As soon as I see it again, right now in this type of game, you're going to be playing run first, right? React to the pass. You're going to see some man in the back end. They're going to run 12 personnel, 13 personnel. Dadgum, you got Jim Lachey's son over there doing a great job coming after a horrific injury last year, doing some things, which is I'm actually excited about that matchup. But you also got Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom being able to cover some tight ends along with a Sam linebacker. I feel really good, but I'll feel really good once I see our linebackers come downhill and build the wall, because that's how you stop the zone. They got to keep bouncing.
Build that wall. I like it, Schlegel. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
Build the wall.
That's how you play good defense, man.
It's
one back, one gap, boom, downhill. I see it. I react to it. Elephants on parade, flip my hips and go.
Elephants on parade. For those of you who don't know, folks, that means that it's a boot. The elephants would be the offensive lineman parading down the line while the running back doesn't have the ball. Quarterback boots back out and they're throwing play action pass. So there you go. Give you a little bit of insight into knocking their junk in the dirt, being blue collar and corn fed. And these are the hot guys coming in. There's a lot of corn, Schlegs, out there in Iowa. Attention, parents, athletes. You want to protect what matters most with X Sports mouth guards. They're designed by NHL dentists, used by professional athletes. X Sport mouth guards are scientifically tested to absorb high-impact hits, protecting both your brain and your grill. They're fantastic, folks. Schlegs always pops them in there. You feel good. X Sport mouth guards. They have 3 layers of advanced protection, including patented use of carbon fiber. They are custom 3D printed to fit your grill. So, folks, for your kids out there, take advantage of this. Make sure you check them out. It's going to be comfortable. There's going to be better protection, better performance, comfort, clear communication. All of those things are going to be fantastic. So you can focus on your game, not on the gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Go to xsportguards.com/Bobby. You get 15% off. You'll protect your kids. Export Guards, protect what matters most. Coming up next, love it or lose it here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, now we got a little new segment for you folks. We're going to get our producer, Pat, involved. Throw out some questions. Since Schlegel is literally sitting there in a squat rack, I thought, what better way to promote this than lift it or lose it? If you're lifting it, we're loving it. We're pumping it up. Schlegel, we will pump you up. But if we don't, we're going to lose the take and say that we think it's garbaggio. It is not good. There might be a little room in between, but we're going to be pretty hard on it. So, Pat, why don't you hop on in here and fire away your first take?
How are we doing, fellas? Yeah, happy to make my on-camera appearance with you guys. But lift it or leave it. We got a bunch of questions coming at you. Our first one, the 2025 NFL QB draft class was more impressive than the 2004 NFL QB draft class. That one had Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, or Eli Manning, I should say, Phillip Rivers, and Matt Schaub. What do you guys think?
So here's who's in this draft class, Schlegel. You've got Carson Beck. You've got Quinn Ewers. You've got Cam Ward. There's going to be some other guys that ultimately come out. Unsure about, where everyone, Will Howard will be in there too. I mean, some of these seniors, some guys can obviously come back. We played against a lot of these guys. These guys are our contemporaries. I'm going to give you the first jump on this.
No, lose it. Lift or lose, right? So lose it. Here's why. The number one draft class of all quarterbacks was 1983, John Elway, Jim Kelly, Dan Marino. I know it's not part of it, but as we've seen, like what we just saw in Carolina, like, no, sir, right? This is definitely a lose it for me. You got to prove it.
Right. Yes. So lift it or leave it. Schlegel is leaving that one. We're going to leave that one aside. Sorry. I'm going to leave it as well because the 04 class, we're not going back to even 83. That 04 class had Eli Manning, who won 2 Super Bowls. It had Ben Roethlisberger, who won 2 Super Bowls. And then had Phillip Rivers, who I could make the argument is better than both of those guys as far as regular season quarterback. When we talked about, I played against all of them. Who did I want to play against? I wouldn't say the least, but who gave us the most trouble? I would say it was Phillip Rivers. I played against him a couple of times, played against Eli multiple times a year, and I played against Ben a handful of times. And I would say the guy was Phillip Rivers. And these guys may be good, but it's a crapshoot. We thought Bryce Young was going to be really good. A lot of people were ready to put him in there. So much of it is situation. So I'm going to leave that as well. All right, Pat, what else we got?
All right, next question we got is if the season ended today, Coach Prime of Colorado would win Coach of the Year.
Ooh, Schlegel, they're 3-1. All right, I'm going to take the lead on this. They're 3-1. I've crapped on Prime a lot, and I didn't think that they would beat Central Florida. I don't know what the rest of the runway is going to look like. I think they have a chance now to potentially win the Big 12. I think that thing is opened up like the Red Sea. It is parted for him to be able to get to 9 wins, 10 wins, I think gets it done for you. They don't have a conference loss. They're playing good football. They beat Central Florida, and I thought handily, and I thought Central Florida would take care of them. I don't know. I mean, they got Signetti at Indiana. There's some coaches that have done a really good job. I don't fully want to lift this, but Schlegel, I'm gonna give this a couple reps because I've been hard on Prime in Colorado, and I want to make sure that they're getting their flowers.
Yeah, Schiano is one of those guys too. You got DeBoer. That, I mean, again, most impressive win beating Georgia. So I'm going to leave this as well. But that's why you got to play the season. The question was today. I'm going to leave it.
All right. Next one, Pat.
All right. So, guys, there will be at least one 2-loss team this year that makes the college football playoff. Lift it or leave it.
I'm going to lift this all day long, Schlegel. This is like circuit training. I mean, this is why we had the CFP. So the second loss wasn't going to kill you. First of all, the Big 12 champ will probably have 2 losses. Almost all of them have 1 loss right now. And then you look at this. You're going to look at the back, 5 automatic bids, the back 7. I'm guessing at least 2, if not 3, maybe even 4 of those teams will be 10-2 squads, or maybe 11-2, or whatever that looks like. This is why they created it. There are not going to be enough 1-loss teams to fill it up.
Absolutely. This is definitely a lift. I mean, let's just take Georgia as an example. You lost to Alabama. You also got Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, potentially a championship game, maybe even a rematch. So this is definitely a lift. There's going to be more than one.
All right. I'd love to get to some more, but we've got some headlines that we've got to get to.
Ooh.
We've got tailgate talk we've got to get to, and then we've got our guy Ben Stevens, and it is going to be raucous. But you know what? Let's see if we can hit one more. Pick your favorite one. I think we got time for one more, Schlegel, but you got to keep it 30 seconds on your answer. Pat, let's try to get one more in here.
All right, guys. If Travis Hunter was playing in the SEC, he would still be putting up the same numbers as he is right now in the Big 12. Lift it or leave it.
I'm going to leave this. I think Travis Hunter would still be playing great, but the reality is, like, if he's playing on Georgia and he has to cover Ryan Williams, it's going to be really hard for him to then go out and have that same offensive production. It's not that he's not any less of a player, but then he would be playing against guys of equal or near equal athleticism where you got to be locked in. Right now, he can probably cheat a lot and take some plays off because of the athletic delta, the variability of what he's seeing. But when you go and play elite good versus good, and they're going to have elite corners locking him up, he would still be playing well. We'd say, hey, this guy's a Heisman Trophy candidate. I don't know if he would be quite as good, but if you put him on a better team, also remember this, Schlegel, he wouldn't be the focal point anymore, so he would be able to have some help.
Wow, I couldn't agree more. You said less than 30 seconds. I couldn't agree more. This is a leave it.
All right. You mean love it. Lift it? You're going to lift it.
I'm going to lift it.
Yeah.
He's still going to be a great player.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. No, you're right. You're right. We're going to leave this because he wouldn't be putting up quite the same things. I apologize. Sorry, I indulged with that segment. Pat, great job. Look forward to doing this weekly. We got headlines coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bobby Carpenter. I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Affinity Whole Health, the leaders in the testosterone replacement industry. I've been on a testosterone replacement program for a few years right now, and I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. Affinity Whole Health has allowed me to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. I loved how easy it was to get started. I booked my free consultation, met with my prescriber, checked my numbers, and Affinity Whole Health designed a program that was customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, let's dive into our headlines brought to you by our friends at Affinity Whole Health. Schlegs, listen, Affinity, they offer personalized treatment plans to help you feel better. Whether you're struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep, they can help you with all of it. Affinity Whole Health provides expert guidance with health experts to safely reach your health goals. They've got Ohio covered, Cleveland, Columbus, they're in Indy, they're in Chicago, throughout the Midwest, they're everywhere. So go check them out. Do not wait any longer. Go to affinitywholehealth.com, set up your free consultation, and get started on that journey. Folks, it's already October. Make sure you start 2025 off with a bang. That's affinitywholehealth.com. All right, Schlegs, let's get to some of those headlines now. I want to start off with this. A guy who missed a couple of games at the beginning of the season. Remember that run game when they're like, it's not that good. Things don't look all that great. Well, let's throw this up here about our guy Donovan Jackson, who's been on the program. Was on this summer when Schlegel was gallivanting around as a strength coach. If we can toss that up there, Pat. But Donovan Jackson getting rated as the highest rated guard. Incredibly impressive with what he's been able to do. They call him an earth mover. He's big. He's physical. He's done one heck of a job. And it's amazing to see how well he's done with his PFF grade. And I don't think PFF grade, Schlegel, are everything, but it is another measuring point. It's another data point for you. And I think this proves to what a lot of us at Ohio State have already believed.
My PFF would have been terrible. I obviously don't like him. I'd rather have the regular sheet where we could banter back and forth with our coach. But good for Donnie. And also,
you mean when you would lobby Fick to turn those minuses into pluses?
Oh, no, that was you. Like, you would have the heated debate. I would be like, how did AJ, like, did I not get an assist on that tackle? I was the first guy to hit him. He jumped on and he just got the tackle. That was for our SID guy, RIP.
Steve Snap.
Steve Snap, man. God bless that guy. I used to get so pissed off, but whatever, man, Chargers to winning. Hey, I'd say this, good for Donnie, but also Austin's done a hell of a job of developing, but it is great to have Donnie back in there. You're already seeing what he's able to do on the offensive line. Big test for him this week, but it's good to see that people are recognizing him.
Best recognized, Schlegel. All right, another guy who just got to Ohio State, and people wonder, like, how good has Caleb Downs been? What has he been able to do since he's been at Ohio State? And, he hasn't had like any crazy big interception returns for touchdowns. He hasn't had any crazy punt returns. Let's throw up his stats of how what he's done, Pat, and how he's dominated since he's been at Ohio State. And you look at him, what does he have? 100 and some snaps. Look at the tackles that he has on there. The 0 passes completed on him, which I think is incredibly impressive. He's got 101 covered snaps, 3 catches allowed, 0 TDs. Only 15 yards on those 3 catches, and he's got a sack. Like, the guy he's a 5-tool safety, to steal a baseball term, because he can blitz, he can cover, he can play man, he can play zone, he can play the run. Like, he does it all, and he's done it at a high level.
Yeah, and he prepares like a pro. Freshman All-American, comes into Ohio State, new defense. He talked about that. It was great because he had spring ball, he had camp. He has Lathan. Him and Lathan are going back and forth competing. Who's going to be the tone setter? They're old souls. They're roommates on the road. He's fanatical about the game of football, which we talk a lot about. Not surprising, huge impact. Grateful that he's a Buckeye.
Yeah, it's big time. He's played really well. It's been a blessing that he's been here, and he's done a great job. And that's going to segue in to the final headline that we have, Schlegel. When we start talking about defense. And people want to talk about defense in football. People look at total defense, and that's yards. Yards are important. It's another metric. But the number one thing that's important for defense is your defensive scores per game, your points per game as a defensive player. Third down percentage is big. Red zone scoring percentage is big. All of those things. But toss this up here. The college football defensive points per game leaders. Ohio State at the top. And you can argue they didn't have the toughest non-conference schedule. Michigan State isn't necessarily the greatest, but like Texas hasn't had one either. Tennessee did play Oklahoma, so I'll give them credit. Iowa State, they played Iowa, but Iowa's in an offensive juggernaut, which is who Ohio State plays this weekend. But it's great to see them at the top. Points per game is what matters on the defensive side of the football.
And we saw that last year, Bob, when in the red zone, 2 years prior, Jim Knowles' first year, they were giving up too many touchdowns in the red zone. Boom. Fast forward last year, it was more field goals than touchdowns in the red zone. And you start to see that now, boom, they have 3 touchdowns. They had 2 field goals in the first game. But as people were marching in the Michigan State game, they got the ball out, created a turnover, didn't even lead to a field goal. That's good. And again, everybody this week talking about Iowa. Guys, Iowa gave up 20 to ISU, 21 to Troy, 14 to Minnesota. That's a lot. To your point, Bob, 6.8. That's remarkable. We've got to keep it going this week versus Iowa.
They're rolling. Well, Schlegel, that is our headlines brought to you by Affinity Whole Health. Go check them out at AffinityWholeHealth.com. Coming up next, it's Tailgate Talk, brought to you by Real Truck, where we answer your questions, dive into your comments. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Stay locked in here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Building a home for the people who are worth it. Stepping out, throwing in a line, and dropping the tailgate for a picnic. And finding far-off campsites with the people you're closest to. Upgrade your truck, Jeep, or Bronco with over 1 million parts and accessories. And bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
Oh, goodness sakes. Here we go. Getting to talk about our tailgate talk. It is our favorite segment that we do each and every week. And tailgate talk, like I said, Schlegel, it's brought to you by our friends over at Real Truck, the #1 truck accessory brand in the United States. You and I have been there. You go online, check them out, realtruck.com. They've got top selling upgrades for the ultimate tailgate party. Gear up for this season and bring your truck to life like we did at realtruck.com. All right, Schlegel, we got some comments on the show from AJ yesterday, and they're fun. Like, why does AJ buy all of his clothes at Walmart? And you said, like, listen, when you find something you like, you just lean on into it. And I mean, if you like your cargo khakis from Walmart, you like your cargo khakis from Walmart. Like, who are we to ultimately disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, what you want to pay? You want to upcharge for the brand, right? There's Kirkland brand. Like, I mean, it's the same. Right? Most of the times it is the same. They're using the same manufacturer, the same product. They just white label it and call it Kirkland's, and there they probably call it something else for those cargoes. Why pay an addition? Hey, it's inflation, people. Why pay more for the Lululemons of the world when I can just go straight up to the Walmart, order it online, boom, they drop it off in my truck and I'm gone.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, like, because I've got a couple pair of Lululemon pants, and then I've got some stuff that I don't know where my wife bought, probably I think they were bought at Walmart, and they feel the same, maybe just as good, maybe even better. I don't know, but they look as good. And you know what? We're going to roll with that sometimes. Someone threw out here, Schlegel, the anti-QB. Respectfully, it's like saying with all due respect, so you can say basically whatever you want after that. Is Iowa actually a big test?
Yeah. You want me to answer this question?
Yeah, it's a question for you to answer.
Yeah, here's the deal. It's a good test, and I'm gonna keep it real with everybody. They're not ranked. I already described the amount of points that they've given up and how we're hyping this defense up. Guys, this is what they're gonna do. They're gonna play under front. They're gonna play quarters. They're gonna play a lot of zone. They're gonna do fire zone. They'll sprinkle in a little bit of man. They're gonna run inside, outside zone, stretch zone, play action pass. That's what they freaking do. They stand back there and try to throw the ball. We're gonna get sacks. They're gonna get obliterated because our guys can run with these guys for days. Okay, so it's going to be a physical matchup up front. The test is we want to see how we are physically matched up on a team that says we're going to run the football. That's why it's a good match.
I love it. And I agree with you. I think it is a test. I don't think it's the biggest test in the world, but it is a big test.
And they're also coming off of a bye week, Bob. So again, we've started slow the last 2 weeks defensively. Jim Knowles talked about that. How do our guys come out and respond based on what Lathan talked about on Monday, right? You get in the flow of the game. Now you know what they're going to do.
Hey, that's the 4th-ranked rushing defense. They got the #2 rusher in the country. They've got some things here. Are they the best skill-wise? Probably not. But we'll put a pin in that. That was our tailgate talk brought to you by our friends over at Real Truck. Check them out at realtruck.com. Ben Stevens, Schlegel, he's up next to answer all of your betting inquiries and have your mind blown. Stay locked in.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, now I'd like to welcome in our friend, Mr. Ben Stevens from Sports Grid Radio, doing such a great job each and every week. Go check him out at Sports Grid. Give him a follow on social media at Ben Scott Stevens. Ben, maybe not quite the gravity this week. I don't know if we have that Bama-Georgia game to maybe really lock into. Before we move on, though, I want to kind of get your thoughts on that Bama-Georgia game and where you see these two teams going from here.
Yeah, Bobby, we knew there was going to be movement in the market from the odds perspective. SEC championship, college football playoff prices, of course, in the chase for a national championship. Just how drastic the movement was going to be based on the result, that was what was at question. And honestly, it wasn't all that bad. If you're Georgia, you've got the fourth best price, but ever so slightly behind Texas at plus 550. Alabama has vaulted up the board, but they're still not the title favorites. It's your Ohio State Buckeyes, still 10 cents in front of the Crimson Tide. So we've got that mishmash at the top, as we would expect. Very tight numbers in the national championship chase, which, at least for me, don't know your guys' thoughts on college football playoff expansion to 12 teams. I think we can all agree, regardless of how we feel about expansion, that we saw two of the best teams in the country in college football face off over a tale of 60 minutes on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. Alabama, great to start. Georgia showed its resilience in the fourth quarter. And of course, Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams dealt that final death blow. But in years past, this game would have been crucial. It would have been a death blow of its own to Georgia's college football playoff outlook, like we saw last year in the SEC title game when Georgia suffered its first defeat in its last 30 football games and came nowhere close to even sniffing the college football playoff. When, guys, I think a lot of us around the college football realm agreed that Kirby Smart's Dogs last year were still maybe the best team in college football that never got the opportunity to truly compete for a national championship. So the great thing in my mind about Saturday was it was a magnificent game. The atmosphere was still unreal. It did not feel diminished or demeaned or less important by any means. And we saw two of the best teams in college football face off. And I still think we will see two of the best college football teams get a chance to reach the college football playoff and play for a title.
All right, Ben. Again, blow my mind. I'm ready for this one. I want your take on this. You got Mizzou, number 9 in the country, going to, again, I think living off of Ohio State, winning the Cotton Bowl, going against 25 Texas A&M. TAMU, baby, -2. What do you got?
Yeah, you know, Schlegel, this is a really interesting matchup. It's the second game this year for Missouri already, where they are in a ranked versus ranked matchup. Texas A&M living up to everything you can as the co-25th best team in the AP poll that doesn't have the juice of any of the ranked matchups that we saw even a Saturday ago. Missouri has played 2 Power 4 opponents. They have not covered in either of those 2 games. They were at least a 2-touchdown favorite against Boston College, won that game by 6. They were a 17.5-point favorite last week against Vanderbilt, and that game went to double overtime for the Tigers to escape by only a field goal. It has not been pretty for a Missouri team that we expected to really just catapult off last year with all of the returning talent they had offensively. Brady Cook at the quarterback spot, their 2 main wide receivers, and maybe the best in the business in Luther Burden. He has been that guy still for his quarterback in Brady Cook, who I believe, if I have these numbers correctly, Cook this year has thrown for 4 touchdown passes, all 4 into the receiving arms of Luther Burden, despite the fact that Theo Weiss Jr. is the leading receiver for the Tigers. What this game really comes down to, though, is Missouri has been pretty good defensively, at least by the metrics. This is by far their toughest test against A&M. Marcel Reed, not great last week against Arkansas by any means, but A&M survives. He has played clean football. Connor Wigman threw 2 picks against Notre Dame and looked atrocious out there. The true freshman in Marcel Reed has thrown for at least 2 touchdown passes in all 3 of the big games he has been a part of now for the Aggies. If he plays clean football, Le'Veon Moss has been great on the ground. We'll see just how good Corey Batoon's new Tigers defense is against their toughest test in A&M. I tend to give credit to Mike Elko and the Aggies here, covering a short 2.5-point number in one of the most difficult atmospheres to go into and win in Kyle Field. You're only laying less than a field goal, even if the game is tight. And I'm by no means overly impressed by Texas A&M this season, but to win by a field goal at home, I'll take the Aggies.
I think Brady Cook, I want to say that he has one of the lowest yards per attempt of anyone in the SEC. It may be the lowest. Like, they haven't pushed the ball down the field really at all, and it's kind of surprising given the receivers that they have, Ben. Want to look at another team that I was really high on to start the season, and then they got beat by BYU. Now, BYU might be better than we thought, but the Ponies heading over to Louisville, and I look at this, like, if they win this game, Ben, Louisville's the Ponies have a pretty straight shot to potentially win out in the ACC. I mean, there's no gimmies, but they don't have Clemson. They don't have Miami. They're heading to the Cardinals. They're coming off that Notre Dame game. How do we feel about the Northern Dallas Ponies right now?
Yeah, Bobby, it's a really impressive game in the ACC for these two teams to kind of stay in that conference contention, right? We give a lot of credit to Miami. They survived last week against Va Tech. Who's going to be that other team? Is it the resurgence of Clemson's offense? Can Louisville stay in the running? They lost to Notre Dame, but not a conference game by any means. Can SMU respond despite a slow start to the year? But again, not in ACC play for Rhett Lashley Stangs, who were great last year in conference action in the American. For me, it's the Louisville defense that was tested on the ground last week against an SMU team that, with where they have been doing it right now, Kevin Jennings has done things incredibly well. And one of the tailbacks for SMU, I'm blanking on his name. Let me go find this real quick. Prashawn, I can't remember his last name at the moment, but one of 14 backs in the country that has run for more than 500 yards so far this season. That's the test once again. Florida State, awful on the defensive side of the football and offensively, but certainly in containing the run. If SMU can take it to Louisville, who wasn't bad last week, defending the three-headed attack of Riley Leonard, of Jadarian Price, and of Jeremiah Love, they weren't bad. They just weren't good enough to win that football game as we expected Notre Dame might. It's going to be a really tough test for this Louisville defense against SMU. And again, Bobby, in a game where these two teams are both with one loss this year, but neither in conference play. And we're trying to find that second fiddle in the ACC. This is a much bigger one than you would expect. And it's a weird ACC affair in Dallas between SMU and Louisville. But again, a very big conference game.
Who do you got? Are you taking Louisville?
When I look at the spread right now, right, the Cards laying less than a touchdown.
Yeah,
I think this game is decided by a score. What is that score, Schlegel? Is it a touchdown? Is it a field goal? Right now, I'm going to think it's closer than a touchdown. I'm actually going to say SMU covering the number as an underdog in this one. Don't know if they went outright, but I do think this game is decided by 3 points or 4.
I got it on my sheet.
Yes.
I got it on my sheet. I'm highlighting the ones not to bet on, the ones to go with you. That one just got a red. Don't go there. How about this one? Ole Miss, UK. Boom. Got a loss. Number 12, going to South Carolina. South Carolina had LSU on the rope. Should have won that football game.
Yeah.
Mississippi's up minus 10 in that one. Who do you got on that one?
Yeah, again, what a disappointing performance out of Ole Miss last week. They came back. They started to throw the football efficiently in the second half with Jackson Dart. Nobody can defend Trey Harris. And then yet somehow, some way, they lose the game to Kentucky. Kentucky as an underdog in SEC play, incredible. 2-0 against the spread, an outright victory against the Rebs, and a 1-point defeat against Georgia. As a favorite, as South Carolina showed them, they're not all that good. South Carolina as an underdog in SEC play, perfect 2-0 against the number. I think this is a spot, Schlegs, where if you are going to be reactionary off 1 week, you're looking only at South Carolina and a Gamecocks team that has kept games more competitive under Shane Beamer and certainly this year, even in conference play. I still believe Ole Miss is going to be in college football playoff contention. If I believe Ole Miss is still going to be in college football playoff contention, this is a game they win by at least a touchdown. It's probably a game, even in Columbia, they should win by double digits. The defense for the Runnin' Rebs, still not bad, but they were outgained last week, was Ole Miss by Kentucky, the worst SEC offense in the conference entering last week. They need to be so much better on that side of the football, and it starts with the efficiency we saw in the final 2 quarters out of Jackson Dart, the entirety of the 4 quarters in Columbia against the Cox. Give me Ole Miss laying the points of 9.5 in this one.
All right, we got about 3 minutes left, Ben. I got 2 games we want to get to here in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
One that I just dipped in on the spread, and I can't believe that I'm seeing this. Michigan, a dog against the Huskies on the road by about 2.5. I haven't seen that a field goal yet. It's been holding there. And then Ohio State opening up with a bigger number, 24. I've seen it 23. Now I'm seeing around 2021 against Iowa at home. What are your thoughts on both of those?
Yeah, so let's start with the least anticipated national championship game rematch the sport has probably ever seen. And the first time in the college football playoff era that, of course, began in the 2014 season. This is the first title rematch that we have seen once again in the following regular season. And maybe last December, when we knew that conference realignment was going to take hold, we're like, oh man, we can't wait for that game already. But there's been so much roster turnover, of course, for both of these teams. The fewest amount of returning production in college football year over year. 40% for the Huskies, only 36% for Michigan. That's what you have when you have so many talented players drafted early on in the National Football League, and coaching changes, of course, as well. What is Michigan doing? They're reverting back to the year 1927. They are not asking Alex Orji to throw the football. They are going to try to run it down Washington's throat. Now, Washington, great against the pass. They have given up more than 120 yards on the ground, as we saw Rutgers exploit in certain spots last week. But the Huskies put up nearly 500 yards of offense in the game and lost by 3 in Piscataway because of field goal issues of their own. Listen, the line feels wonky. 10th ranked team in the country, reigning national champs, road underdog in Seattle. We know how tough of a place Husky Stadium is. I'm going to avoid it. Washington has only covered once this year. It was against Northwestern. We'll see about Michigan, already a dog for the 3rd time this year, when they were a dog 3 times in the previous 3 seasons under Jim Harbaugh. Here's my favorite look in this game. Will Rogers, Washington's quarterback, over 227.5. All Michigan quarterbacks that they have faced outside of Arkansas State and Jalen Raynor have thrown for at least 235 yards. A Michigan secondary last year that was second best in the country, only behind Ohio State, allowing less than 160 yards, is now 3rd worst in the Big Ten at nearly 250. Give me Will Rogers over his prop. And then quickly on Iowa and Ohio State. We have seen large spreads in this game before, but it's actually been a little bit more competitive outside of the most recent meeting in 2022. A big thing for the Hawks is defending the big play. I'm not sure we have seen that so much out of Will Howard yet, albeit Jeremiah Smith has been sensational. I think Iowa keeps this game to within 3 touchdowns. I don't think it's really on upset alert for the Buckeyes, but I do think Iowa can cover. They have not been an underdog all that much under Kirk Ferentz, despite what we might have seen and a ton of sample size there in 26 years. I think Iowa covers the number. Ohio State still wins by 2 touchdowns plus.
Yeah, this seems more like a 28-10, maybe 31-13, but I don't see this thing getting stretched. They've got the 4th-ranked rushing defense in the country. Iowa does. So, and Ohio State has been pounding the ball, Ben. So thank you so much for joining us again this Thursday. You do a great job, folks. Go check him out at Sports Grid and on Twitter at Ben Scott Stevens. He's got great content everywhere. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us today.
Gents, always a pleasure. We will talk next week.
All right, we'll wrap up the show. Coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
They're off in the Kentucky Derby as Authentic takes them around the far turn. Tis the Laws making his move now, and they're into the stretch. These two stride for stride. Authentic, tis the Law. Here's the wire. Authentic has won the Kentucky
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegel, you got your mind blown again by Ben. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Win a couple shekels off him. You got 30 seconds left. Close us up.
No, I'm going with Ohio State, guys. I know I love all the stuff that Ben just said, but this Iowa team, but this Buckeye team, how they're locked in, getting ready to go on this little stretch they're going to have. I think they're going to be ready for this one. I see it 3 touchdowns.
Well, we'll get into all that. We'll give our score predictions tomorrow on a big Friday. Folks, stay locked in. Stay tuned in. Thank you for watching this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show.